Did you know that one of the lightest e-bike motors in the world actually comes from northwest Spain? Welcome to the X20. Not only is it light, but it's also said to be one of the smartest. It's designed and engineered by a company called Mahle. Remember that name, that's if you haven't already. 5 continents, 160 locations, and 75,000 employees worldwide. They're a huge supplier to the automotive industry with engine systems and components. Yes, they're a pretty big deal.
And so, luckily for us, Mahle had also invited us to ride their new X20 motor out in Spain, as well as look at it.
But look, you guys want to know about e-bikes, right? So, what do we actually know about Mahle? Well, we know that they design software and hardware solutions for many e-mountain bike manufacturers. But more than this, they actually build systems and components for some of the most innovative e-bikes out there.
One such bike is the new Mondraker Dusty. Yes, it's a gravel bike. It has thinner tyres, drop handlebars, and many other parts that some of you might find unfamiliar. But what it also has is a silent motor and an ability to make your off-road adventures just that little bit more possible, without, of course, interfering and being overpowering. The Dusty is all about enabling you to go that bit further, that bit longer. And Mondraker, being a brand with a strong down eMTB heritage, forward-thinking geometry, have yet again taken a bold move by making something a little bit different with the Dusty. It's their first drop handlebar bike, and the mood is all about off-road capability, taking care of the impacts. It's also about making sure it's under the radar too, silently slipping past sheep rather than scaring them, silently pushing up hills rather than dragging you. Back in Spain, I was busy acquainting myself with the heart of the Dusty's helping hand, the Mahle X20.
Now the design, the R&D of the X20 motor from Mahle takes place here in Palencia in the community of Castile and Leon. I'm in the prototyping room and I've got a deconstructed X20 motor in front of me. And I'm joined by Manuel Pal, who is head of testing and validation. Manuel, it seems to me like there's lots of moving parts here. Apparently there's 140, but there seems to be different materials in the motor. What's the thinking behind that?
Yes, that's correct. So we have here to consider weight, noise and endurance.
Okay. Talking about endurance, behind you, you seem to have some motors, some X20 motors. These seem to have been through the ringer, don't they? We've got here 3,400 kilometers, 5,000k, 5,500k and 10,000k. What's going on here, apart from the fact that they've done a lot of work?
So basically you can see here different batches of endurance runners. So what we're going to do here is to see how the endurance affects during the bench ride. So we can see here a really early stage and then we go through the latest stage.
It appears to me, Manuel, that there's not really much difference in that ring drive there. Is it called a ring drive?
Ring gear.
Ring gear there. There's not much difference between early days and 10,000k for what seems to be a plastic component.
Yes, for sure. So you can see here the wear of, let me say, 10,000 kilometers endurance run. And it's not that much, but we can see that the grease, for example, which cool down and heats up a lot of times, get a different color like the early stage.
But it's still there, right?
It's still there, thanks God for that, because we need the grease for sure.
Yeah.
And yes, as I mentioned, this is something what we have also to evaluate, how many kilometers, how many mileage we can achieve with one endurance run.
Now, a minute ago I mentioned the different materials. I see here we've got steel and plastic. Obviously the two can be combined then, right?
Yes, for sure, you can combine it, but sometimes it doesn't make sense because we have here to consider for sure also the NVH behavior.
NVH?
NVH.
Which is?
Noise, vibration, harshness. That means acoustics, so noise levels, and for that reason we have to take this also to account that we sort in a really good way the materials to each other. Basically, after the endurance run, we take the drive units and we have to take a deeper look inside what happens during the endurance run. So for that reason, we're going to this station here, what you can see over there. Basically, we have here a microscope with a camera equipped, and we can take some good high-resolution pictures to make some first analysis.
Of the motors with like 3000K, 5000 and 10,000.
Exactly, there are some different stages which we're going to evaluate.
So Manuel, how many kilometers is this gear then on screen now?
So we have here around about 3,500 kilometers.
Whoa, is it a pass or a fail?
That's for sure a pass.
Now then, I've got a surprise for you. I've got one here which has done 11,000K. You confident I can stick that on the machine?
Let's have a look inside.
Can I put it on there, please, sir? And obviously, being a motorcyclist, I can tell you if the cogs are good or not. Still a lot of grease on there, isn't there?
For sure, you can see here a lot of grease, but the
shape is good, right?
The shape is still okay, and we can use it still.
After 10,000K?
After 10,000K.
Great news for mountain bikers worldwide. Okay, what we got going on here?
So this is super important to know, because then we can compare this piece, this part, with over there.
That's the housing, right?
The housing, exactly. So
okay. Should you have a look at this?
Over there we are able then to measure in a high resolution way the dimensions of this housing here from the X20. Afterwards we can compare the dimensions of this piece with, for sure, the concentricity out of that.
When we're talking tolerances, are we talking like a millimeter here or there, or I'm guessing a bit smaller, right?
Millimeter would be a little bit way too much, let me say. So we are talking here about microns. To be precisely, we're talking here about 1.8 microns of error. So that's a really
it's small.
Good value.
It's small.
It is.
Now, I have obviously ridden the X20, and I can say that it is super silent and drag-free. But what I want to find out is how Manuel and his team get to produce such a quiet motor. So let's head out and see some of the testing. Now, we're talking the X20 hub drive motor. Obviously, Mahle do make mid-drive systems for other companies, but we're now into the IP testing. Actually, what does IP testing mean?
IP means ingress protection.
Oh, makes sense.
Makes sense.
Let's start off then with a bit of dust. So this looks like a dust machine with a windscreen wiper on it.
Or you can try it.
Can I try that?
Yes.
Look at that. That is so satisfying. So what's going on here, Manuel?
So basically we can see here a dust chamber which allows us to investigate in a more detailed way how many dust after a while, it's a normative, comes inside the drive unit.
Well, I guess the good thing is, you know, Mahle X20s will be sold to many different countries worldwide, right?
Exactly, yes.
Now moving on to something which is a little bit more UK orientated, not the heat chamber. Actually, what kind of temperatures do we get up to in this heat chamber?
We can go here up to 180 degrees.
Well, where's that going to be?
I don't know where. Maybe you're so fast with your bike, I don't know. But we can also go below minus 40 degrees. Right. So in both directions.
Right. So what are you cooking up here exactly?
So basically you can see here that we try to set up our ambient temperature to take a deeper look inside what happens with the ECU temperature. So with the PCB in the drive unit inside and the whole gear system inside as well.
And we've got one fantastic machine over here. I cannot wait to show you guys it. Manuel, do you want to open it or shall I? Can I open it? Honestly, please check this out. It's so good. Whoa! Imagine having one of those at home. What's going on? Oh, crikey. It's like I'm down the beach. So, what's going on? Whoa!
Basically, there's a salt.
To check for rust levels.
Exactly. We evaluate here after a couple of hours. Let me say precisely, we are evaluate here after 240 hours how the drive unit looks outside the housing, but also inside.
Again, ask you the question again, pass or fail?
In this case, pass.
So here we have a very beautiful e-mech dyno. Now on a dyno, these guys can measure so many things, such as the power curve, how a motor delivers its power. Other things such as the cadence range of that motor, the effect of the weight on the motor, and also, get this, the effect of spoke tensions. Now Manuel, one other thing is D-rating. What does D-rating mean exactly?
So basically D-rating means it's a protection to avoid that the drive unit is overheating. For example, when we are facing a heavy climbing, a steep climbing, and the drive unit starts to overheat, then we can decrease the power.
So big riders, steep climbs, hot days, that's where the D-rating comes in, right?
It could help.
Oh yeah, looks like another e-mech machine, Manuel. What's going on here then?
Correct. This is our hub drive endurance bench. What we are doing here is to test our drive units in terms of endurance, as I showed you before.
So this is a stage on from the dyno, right?
Exactly. So, but we are able here to test only the component itself, and we try to achieve here about 15,000 kilometers of mileage.
15,000.
15. Exactly.
Pass or fail?
Yes.
It's a pass.
Pass.
I guess this is the testing of the power mode thingy, right?
That's the power mode thing, or how we call it, HMI.
HMI meaning?
That's the human-machine interface.
Well, look, we've got 100,000 cycles. I think that says it all. Let's go for a coffee.
Now that we've looked at the production, we need now to look at what they call the e-bike system, which comprises the motor, the battery, controller, remote and the sensors. And it just so happens all of these elements they've conveniently packed into a suitcase for us to show you.
The system. Now, Mahle say this is the lightest e-bike system in the world. So let's take a look at some of the component parts, starting off with the drive unit. Now, it's a hub drive, rear hub drive. It's connected via AMC, automatic motor connection, which means it is free of cables, which I'm sure many of you will feel very refreshing. Weighs in at 1,399 grams. Now, obviously, we're used to lots of these lightweight systems on the market, around about 2 kilos. So already there's a significant weight saving there. We're also quite familiar with hub drives on EMBN, and some of them, yes, they can be a bit clunky. Whereas this one, as you guys will see in the workshop later, is lightweight, very quiet, and also said to be incredibly reliable. Now, the X20 is compatible with all freewheel standards. It's designed and assembled in Europe, but what about the power? Two incredibly streamlined batteries in the range, the iX250 and iX350, which give you 100 and 140 kilometers range respectively. And don't forget, you've got the good old range extender, which weighs in at 1.1 kilos and gives you an extra 60 kilometers. A few more bits in the box. We've got the bottom bracket mounted torque sensor, super streamlined. Talking of streamline, we've got the remote, otherwise known as the human machine interface. So I think we'll have a look at that on the bike and look at the colors. And of course, the optional display there, which is super streamlined too.
Of course, all these features need to work seamlessly when you're out on the trail, and Mondraker have agonised over incorporating X20 into the Dusty, as well as making a comfortable off-roader. Suspension forks, drop seat post, wide tyres, e-bike meant for covering off-road territory fast and taking away the impacts. But one thing I've always worried about hub drives is what happens when you get a puncture.
Now, the cool thing about the X20 over many other hub drive motors on the market is that it's cableless. So that means you can actually remove that rear wheel just like a traditional wheel. And as Pablo showed there, it is super simple. God, I thought it'd take you 20 seconds, isn't it? So I guess the cool thing about that is if you're a home mechanic or indeed a dealer, it's actually pretty stress-free. Now, one of the great things about the X20 is the motor is actually drag-free. So when you're on a forest track such as this and you're above 25k, you haven't got that drag in the system. And that applies not only to gravel bikes, but also to hardtails too.
Out in the trails, it's important to understand the X20 is all about giving you a subtle hand of support, taking the sting out of the climbs and extending your range without the motor taking over. This Mahle is almost silent, drag-free, lightweight and very much a low-profile system. The transition at 25 kph of the X20 is incredibly smooth and, as with many hub drives, performs better at higher speeds.
Wow, beautiful single track out here in Palencia and some lovely blue skies. Okay, let's turn our attention to the remote and the display. Now, super minimalist remote on the X20, which is integrated into the top tube. There's 3 different assist modes. You've got Eco, Urban and Sport. Now you can actually adjust the support of each mode in the app, which I'll talk about later in terms of the motor mapping. What I really like about this system is you've got these E-shifters which are integrated into the handlebar. I'm wondering whether we could adopt that to some e-mountain bikes in the future too. They're really easy to use. They vibrate when you change mode, so really cool feature. So in terms of the display, usual metrics, you've got your speed, you've got the range, you've got battery level, and some good configuration which we'll talk about a bit later.
Having spent some time on the dusty back home, it was interesting getting to grips with Mahle's philosophy on the lightweight motor and realised that this isn't just a motor bolted into a drop handler bike. This is a gravel bike that really does make things happen.
Okay folks, let's talk about the app for a minute. Now I've got to admit, I am not the brightest person when it comes to navigating my way around some apps on the market, but I have to say the Mahle system is really easy to find your way around. So I'm going to talk about a couple of features that I think are really cool. The first of which is the fact that you can type in your age, your weight, and it'll actually configure the motor and the setup and the power settings for you, I guess. So I think that's really cool. The second one is you can set your heart rate. So for example, if you can have a super steep climb like that and you hit a heart rate which you don't want to go above, then the bike will actually give you added support to make sure you can get to the top. So I think those 2 features are really cool. Other than that, we've got the usual suspects. We've got your previous activities, which I tend to use quite a lot. So things such as how many watts did you use in a ride, what mode did you use in a ride, your range, and of course the route that you went around. So you can definitely return to those in the future. When it comes to on-bike settings, you can use your phone as your remote, which is really cool because the great thing about the Mahle one is that the display then becomes really clear for you to see when you're riding along on the trail. So as I mentioned, you've got Eco, Urban and Sport modes. All the metrics such as battery level and speed. As I mentioned earlier, you've got the motor mapping option. So you've obviously got your Eco, Urban and Sport mode, which are preset, but you can actually have a custom preset where you can adjust the peak power, the acceleration and the responsiveness of that motor. Now, I think a great use of the X20 motor is on single track trails such as this. So whether it be on a gravel bike or a hardtail, this is really good fun. Wow, wide tyres on a gravel bike on some fantastic single track. I like it. Obviously, the blue skies help out here in Palencia. What I'd like to try is actually this X20 motor in a wide tyred hardtail, obviously on suitable trails, but I think that could be good too. But the motor, X20, not only have they created one of the lightest e-bike motors in the world, but crucially, I think the whole e-bike system is super simple at the same time. And one other important factor, what I've noticed, especially when I'm riding it, is It's super quiet, and I think for many people that is really important. Thanks so much for the guys at Mahle for inviting us out here to Spain and look behind the scenes at this very important motor plant. Any questions you've got about hub drive e-bikes, fire them at me, because I've certainly learned quite a bit during my trip out here in Spain. But that's it. We've got some fantastic trail to ride, and yeah, we'll see you next time, probably in the mud.